10. Sarah Lilly. At least 20 residents were displaced from their homes in early 2023 when an uncontrolled blaze ripped through an apartment complex in rural Springville, New York. Luckily, the tenants escaped without injury, but the building and everything in it were completely destroyed, leaving at least 4 families with nothing as they grappled with their material losses and mourned the deaths of their beloved pets. And in a region infamous for its frigid winters and lake-effect snow, the timing of the fire couldn't have been worse. Authorities charged one of the tenants, 36-year-old Sarah Lilly, with felony arson. Meanwhile, rumors spread about an alleged dispute between the suspect and the landlord, along with claims that Lilly walked into a bar and bragged about starting the fire just minutes after igniting the blaze. Law enforcement declined to comment on any of the gossip, but Mindy Morelli, one of the residents who lost her home in the fire, told local station WIVB that the disaster could have been prevented, and many locals have echoed her sentiments. At the time the fire occurred, Lilly was facing a felony burglary charge in an unrelated case. She was accused of stealing from a store she had previously been banned from for shoplifting. Due to New York State's bail laws, which many people believe are overly generous toward criminal suspects, Lilly was released from custody amid the pending charges. The most recent arson charge was enough to keep her behind bars for the time being, but some community members believe that the fire never would have happened if authorities were able to keep her in custody on the shoplifting case. While Erie County Sheriff John Garcia did go into specifics on the case, he conceded that law enforcement received 63 911 calls about Lilly in the 6 months leading up to the fire. If convicted, she could face up to 25 years in prison. 9. The Sawmill Fire. Gender reveal parties weren't always a thing, but they've gained immense popularity in recent years, and it often seems as though each expecting couple is determined to prove that they're more creative than the last. Of course, things don't always go as planned, and sometimes the outcome of a gender reveal stunt is nothing short of catastrophic. One such instance happened in Arizona in April 2017, when 37-year-old Border Patrol agent and father-to-be Dennis Dickey shot at a target that was filled with a pink or blue material during a gathering near Green Valley, Arizona. The target was filled with a highly explosive material called tannerite, which, if the display had gone according to plan, would have filled the sky with a cloud of pink or blue residue. But Dickey got far more than he bargained for when he fired at the homemade contraption, which triggered a massive blaze that infamously came to be known as the Sawmill Fire. He called for help the moment he realized the fire had gotten out of control, but by then it was spreading so rapidly that even emergency responders were powerless to stop it. The flames engulfed a 45,000-acre area over the next week, as nearly 800 firefighters fought a seemingly losing battle to get the runaway blaze under control. They eventually managed to put it out at the cost of $8.1 million in taxpayer funds, which Dickey was ordered to pay back in full. He admitted to starting the fire and pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor violation of United States Forest Service regulations, which may seem light considering the amount of damage that was caused. But the 7-figure restitution and the lifelong embarrassment he's bound to suffer as a result of the incident are probably punishment enough on their own. 8. Live streamer lights house on fire. A live streamer from Japan made news headlines in 2015 when he accidentally burned his home down in one of his videos. During a live broadcast on a Japanese website called Nico Nico Duga, the unnamed man took a break from gaming to demonstrate his smoking skills. While showing off his lighter in what can only be described as an obviously careless way, he stopped to refill it with fluid. He wiped some fluid away with a tissue and threw it into a wastebasket behind him. The man then lit a match, which to his surprise burst entirely into flames. When he thought it had burned out, he tossed it into the same garbage can he'd thrown the lighter fluid-soaked tissue into. As you may have already guessed, the entire contents of the wastebasket quickly caught fire. The visibly panicked live streamer attempted to put the blaze out by smothering it with cardboard, but considering the fact that the cardboard is flammable, the flames continued to spread. He continued trying in vain to extinguish the fire as smoke filled the room. Throughout the ordeal, viewers tried telling him how to put the blaze out more effectively. At least one person suggested using a less incendiary item than cardboard to squash the flames, such as a futon. But the advice fell on deaf ears, and the situation only worsened. After several minutes, the man finally gave up and fled the apartment. According to reports, he made it out safely and nobody else was seriously injured, but it's probably safe to assume that the building suffered considerable damage, and that the streamer's neighbors probably weren't too happy with him after learning about the careless mistakes that led to the out-of-control blaze. 7. The Fancher Fire. Situated on the Allegheny Indian Reservation in western New York, the small city of Salamanca is home to around 6,000 residents. It's quiet today, but during its heyday, it was a bustling railroad hub and a boomtown of America's lumber industry. By the early 2000s, less than a handful of the once thriving production facilities headquartered in Salamanca were still operating. Among the few that were still hanging on was a factory called the Fancher Furniture Company. Its future was uncertain after the company changed hands in 2008, but fate made that decision 2 years later when the factory erupted into flames one afternoon. Authorities evacuated nearby residents while locals gathered in the parking lot of a nearby grocery store and watched in shock and awe as the blaze grew out of control. Within 2 hours of the first signs of the fire being spotted, both of the company's 4-story buildings were fully engulfed in flames. A massive black plume of smoke darkened the sky and could be seen for miles around. It was one of the worst, if not the worst fire that Cattaraugus County had seen in over half a century. By then, the factory had been vacant for over a year, begging the obvious question of how the fire started. But at the time, authorities were more worried about putting the flames out than allocating blame. The building was chock full of flammable materials, and its sprinkler system had been shut off months earlier. To make matters worse, high winds threatened to spread the blaze to neighboring homes and businesses, including a lumber yard located right next door. Thanks to the well-organized response among multiple fire departments, the fire was eventually put out. And while both buildings were completely destroyed, the outcome could have been much worse. That same evening, police arrested 6 young men on suspicion of arson. The suspects' names were never disclosed, and the cases were handled quietly in court. But from what authorities have revealed, the nearly catastrophic blaze was a sobering example of how quickly things can get out of hand when you play with fire. 6. Homemade pest control goes horribly wrong. Just days before Thanksgiving in 2021, a homeowner in Montgomery County, Maryland, attempted to deal with an ongoing snake problem by smoking the reptiles out of their 10,000 square foot house. Hoping to end the infestation for good, they lit some coals in their basement and went about their usual day. Unbeknownst to the homeowner, they'd placed the hot coals near some combustible materials, causing the house to burst into flames when they were out running errands. No other household members were home when the fire began to spread, and by the time a passing motorist called 911, the flames had taken over the majority of the 3-story home. 75 firefighters responded to the scene, where they spent hours combating the blaze. The fire finally smoldered out the next morning, leaving an estimated $1 million worth of damage in its wake. Thankfully, nobody was injured, but things could have turned out much differently if anyone had been inside the house when it caught fire, and the destruction undoubtedly disrupted the household members' lives in major ways. The situation highlighted the dangers of using homemade pest control methods and the importance of calling a professional exterminator, which may seem like common sense to a lot of people. But this wasn't the first incident of its kind to occur, and it certainly won't be the last. Just 3 years earlier, in 2018, a man attempted to smoke bomb a family of skunks out of a crawl space in his Ferndale, Arizona home. He succeeded, but he also lit his house on fire and nearly burned it to the ground. In 2017, another homeowner destroyed his house in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, while trying to scare possums out of his yard. Using butane, he lit a pile of leaves on fire, hoping it would cause the rodents to flee. The flames quickly spread to his house, which was made out of wood, resulting in at least $50,000 of damage. Authorities condemned the property, forcing all 3 household members to move. So again, What's the lesson to be learned from all these disastrous yet avoidable incidents? The takeaway is simple. Leave pest control to the experts. It's less expensive than burning your house down. 5. Gail Melwood. What began as an ordinary afternoon in Elkton, Maryland in 2021 ended with multiple fire departments responding to a house fire that a woman was accused of setting on purpose. According to authorities, 47-year-old Gail J. Melwood lit several fires inside of the home while someone else was in it. She then went outside and made herself comfortable in a lawn chair while she watched the house go up in flames. Viral footage appeared to show Melwood arguing with another woman and a man on the front porch of the home shortly before the fire began. The confrontation was visibly heated and showed the man pouring water on Melwood. According to the video's narrator, he also threatened to beat her up. The clip then cut to the moment the house began to burn down and showed Melwood calmly reading a book while flames engulfed the structure. The person filming the video could be heard saying, "I cannot actually believe it," and she's just sitting there just chilling watching the house go up in flames. Oh my god. Officials later said that Melwood walked away from the scene a few minutes after sitting down. Around the same time, witnesses heard a woman screaming from inside the house. Quick-thinking bystanders rushed, followed the sound to a basement window, and helped the woman escape. As it turned out, she appeared to be the same woman who was seen in the viral video clip arguing with Melwood. Sheriff's deputies found Melwood nearby and booked her into custody on charges of first and second-degree attempted murder, arson, assault, 2 counts of malicious burning, 2 counts of malicious destruction of property, and 2 counts of reckless endangerment. The details of what led up to the alleged arson remain unclear, and the case appears to be ongoing. 4. Fireworks lead to forest fire. In 2018, an unfortunate young man from Oregon added his name to the growing list of people who've started forest fires by playing with flammable materials in the woods. According to authorities, the suspect threw fireworks into the Columbia River Gorge outside Portland, sparking a massive blaze that burned for months and devoured 47,000 acres of wilderness, an area roughly equivalent in size to Washington, D.C. Investigators identified the teen with help from tipsters and charged him with arson. His mother later told the Oregonian newspaper that her son didn't mean to cause a forest fire, and that the ordeal of going through court and being held criminally responsible for his actions was traumatic for him. But the young man did the right thing and owned up to his actions in court, and he apologized to everyone who was affected by the fire, including 2 households who lost their homes. The judge ordered him to pay $36.6 million in restitution, but acknowledged that the defendant would never be able to pay the full amount. He also sentenced the teen to 1,920 hours of community service and 5 years of probation. The young man's attorney argued that the restitution demand was cruel and unusual, but the court upheld the ruling. Under Oregon law, as long as he completes his probation, doesn't reoffend, and sticks to an agreed-upon payment schedule, the court can essentially forgive the debt after 10 years. 3. Pamela Crawley West. In late 2022, a 54-year-old Memphis woman named Pamela Crawley West was accused of setting her wheelchair-bound neighbor's house on fire with 7 people inside. According to the victim, who asked the media not to identify her, it all started when West brought her a hamburger. She said that she paid West back, but was a little short, which wouldn't seem like a big deal to most people, since the burger was only $2.50 to begin with. But West was allegedly outraged and said good luck getting out of the house to her neighbor before leaving and slamming the door behind her. According to an affidavit, West then set a bag of the woman's clothing on the porch and lit it on fire. Within moments, flames began to engulf the house. Luckily, the 4 adults and 3 children inside managed to escape. Authorities charged West with aggravated arson. Speaking with Fox 13, the suspect's daughter, Jennifer Johnson, accused the neighbors of being on drugs. She admitted that her mother likes to steal, that she probably stole the neighbor's dope, and that it probably led to the argument that occurred before the fire. But Johnson said that she didn't think West was guilty of arson because she knew there were kids in the house and would never hurt a child. In what can only be described as a truly dysfunctional rivalry between neighbors, the case appears to be ongoing. 2. The El Dorado Fire. Wildfires are a major and growing problem in California thanks to climate change, which has turned parts of the state into tinderboxes. Based on common sense alone, most people probably realize that playing with fire is the last thing anyone should be doing in California's forests during the summer. Still, some unfortunate souls have made poor decisions that have forced them to learn this lesson the hard way. One group of people joined that club during a gender reveal party over Labor Day weekend in 2020, when they decided it would be a good idea to light a smoke bomb among 4-foot-high wild grasses at El Dorado Ranch Park. The device malfunctioned, sparking an out-of-control blaze that quickly began to consume everything in its path. Efforts among partygoers to douse the flames with bottled water were futile, to say the least. The El Dorado Fire, as it came to be called, began in early September. It burned for more than 2 months and destroyed 22,744 acres of wilderness before it was finally extinguished in mid-November. In addition to the environmental devastation the fire left in its wake, 1 firefighter died and 13 people were injured. The fire forced more than 20,000 people out of their homes, destroyed 20 buildings, and shut roads down for months. Suppressing the blaze came at a cost of nearly $42.3 million, and taxpayers footed the bill. Authorities charged the expectant couple, corrections officers Refugio Manuel Jimenez Jr. and Angelina Rene Jimenez, with over 24 crimes in connection with the fire, including involuntary manslaughter for the death of the firefighter who lost his life combating the flames. The pair were also charged with 3 felony counts of recklessly causing a fire to an inhabited structure, 3 felony counts of recklessly causing a fire with great bodily injury, and 22 misdemeanor counts of recklessly causing a fire to the property of another. As of early 2023, the case was ongoing, and the defendants were on leave from their jobs while they faced what appeared to be a long road of court proceedings ahead of them. 1. An accidental pipe bomb. 56-year-old Pamela probably didn't think her life was in imminent danger when she attended a gender reveal party in Iowa in 2019. If anything, she was most likely in a festive mood and excited to learn about whether the parents-to-be were expecting a baby boy or a girl. Families and friends gathered outside the home in Knoxville for the big moment and pulled out their phones to record the reveal so they could share it on social media with guests who couldn't make it to the party. What was supposed to be a happy memory turned out to be gruesome and devastating when the explosive device that was meant to reveal the baby's gender malfunctioned, sending shards of metal flying into the air. Crimea was standing with other partygoers at what seemed like a safe distance of roughly 45 feet away when she was fatally struck by a piece of the shrapnel. In fact, the metal traveled up to 10 times that far, with some pieces landing 144 yards away from the explosion site. Luckily, nobody else was hurt, but one death was too many, and the day will forever be marked by tragic memories for everyone who was there. An investigation by the Marion County Sheriff's Office found that the family had experimented with various explosive materials in the days leading up to the party, in hopes of pulling off a dazzling, perfect pyrotechnic display. In an attempt to create a device that would shoot pink or blue powder into the air, they poured gunpowder into the bottom of a homemade stand that was welded onto a metal base. Over the gunpowder, they placed a board, and on top of the board, they put the colored powder. They taped the device's metal tubing, thinking it would force the powder to spew out of the top of the contraption, but instead, it caused an explosion inside of the tubing. Simply put, the family accidentally created a pipe bomb, and Crimea was killed instantly in the explosion. Thanks for watching. If you saw a duffel bag full of cash sitting in the basement of a burning home, and it seemed like there was time to retrieve it without any bystanders noticing and before the fire got to it, would you try grabbing it up, or would you err on the side of caution and forego the potential fortune? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.